You're listening to Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guests. I got to tell you something, people. I'm really excited to have this gentleman on my show today because I was listening to Night Ranger after their first album back in '82. I was a senior in high school, and then I was growing up with MTV, and we saw the videos, and their drummer Kelly's been on my show, and this guy can jam, and they have a new album that just came out, and it's Brad Gillis. How you doing, Brad?
Doing good, Steve. Today's Tuesday. Tuesday's interview day for Jack, Kelly, and me. And so, I was glad to fit you in. With this new record coming out, everybody's pretty excited about it.
Tell me about the new record, Atvpo. Tell me about it because you guys recorded it during a pandemic. And I know it's a fascinating story behind it. When did you start recording it? Before everything shut down or when it started shutting down?
Well, September of last year, so, almost a year ago. Well, we were all sitting around doing nothing, and we kind of, we knew we had another record we had to finish for Frontier, so we thought, let's try to do this, during the pandemic. How are we going to do it? Well, we started out with Jack, Kelly, and me doing Zoom calls, and just ideas, just throwing them down, and then, everybody had their own home studio, so Kelly, our drummer, Kelly Keagy, went into a big studio in the Phoenix area where he lives, and once we knew the arrangements, he put down the drums, and once we had that down with the basic, format of the arrangement, we would just pass them around everybody's studio, and we'd do our own thing. So we never got together once, man. Isn't that? It's just crazy. But we did a whole record without getting together.
Now, did you miss the camaraderie? Because I'm sure when you get into the studio, there's camaraderie and there's bitching. There's both sides. I mean, there's disagreements, I'm sure. But did you miss that? Did you miss that spark of both the negative and the positive?
Well, yeah, we kind of came up with, I think, 16, 17 tunes. Everybody knows what a good song is, so we're able to pick the best songs. And then as far as the solos and stuff, it's like, Carrie Kelly, the guitar player, we get together, it's like, no, this style fits you better, yeah. We do what's best for the song, and then, even back in the day, the first couple of records with Jeff Watson on guitar, we kind of battle it out, who's going to play this, who's going to play that, and then when we do that, Jack or Kelly would come in and say, do a harmony solo, do something together. So that's what happened to a bunch of tunes back then. But, same deal now, and, we try to always keep it that Night Ranger format, which is, the twin guitars and harmonies, and Jack and Kelly, maybe, Jack will sing a verse, Kelly do the B section coming together for the choruses. I'm usually singing the high harmony, the low harmony, and the three parts, but that's how we've always done it, and we just stick to that format. And you always want to change things up, have a different type tunes on a record, you got your up-tempo, mid-tempo, and a couple ballads, so we kind of just stick to that format, but when you got a good song, and excuse me, when things are happening, and if they aren't happening, you kind of move on to something else, or you change what's in that song to make it more viable for the record.
How do you know? Like, is it just something that you say, okay, this is it, or is it something that you sit there and go, this has a possibility of being a really good song?
You kind of listen to it for a couple days, you don't judge from the first listen, or when somebody passes you something. You kind of listen for a couple days and really get a handle on it, and that's what I like to stress to people when they listen to new records. I mean, we got a lot of reviewers that heard our new record, and most of them all have been great, but a couple have been like, I don't get it kind of thing. But I judge a record. I take it and I listen to it when I download or something, a band I like or whatever, and I listen to it for a couple days, and that's when it grows on you. You either like it or you don't. First listen, you can't really judge. So, I stress to people that listen to any record, listen to it a few times and see if it grows on you,
So, you've been around for a long time, and, you come back from the time when, albums meant something. I always talk to, people like, when you got an album when you were younger, you looked at it and you felt it and you made sure it was good and all the tracks had to be good. How do you, who's responsible for your new album, putting all the tracks together, and do you argue about it? Like say, okay, you know what, maybe this one should go here, because you know as well as I do, when you listen to an album and every song's just synced, you're just feeling great.
Yeah, you kind of, you figure that out. usually something fiery and up tempo first, just to get your blood going, and you always throw the ballad third or fourth, and but you kind of stage it just kind of in a wave, So when you're listening to the whole record, you kind of go up and down with the moods of the songs, You don't want to hit you too hard and then throw down a ballad or two, then go back up. It's like you kind of bring it in waves, so it's kind of a tough process, but we've done it for years and it seems to work out okay. But like I said, you throw the ballad in there third or fourth, and start off kicking butt.
Now, Breakout was the first single off that. Why did you choose that? And I want to hear about how you made the video, because video shooting has changed. Back in the day, a video would cost you $250,000, and people don't know you guys would have to pay for it out of your bonus. But how did you pick that song, and what was the video process like?
Yeah, the record company picked it. We were kind of going through different, ideas of what we thought should be the single. So we thought, not that it was going to be set in stone by them, but we thought, what is your thoughts on, the first release, second release, and they said, hey man, Breakout is so Night Ranger. We think that should be your first single. And then, so we ended up going to the Salton Sea, which is outside of in California, out by Palm Springs, and we had this good buddy of mine who I've done work for that does videos, Brian Isley, come in, and he did both videos there at the Salton Sea in one day, and we did it for cheap, and they turned out pretty good with the crazy backgrounds and stuff from the Salton Sea. The whole deal with that is the people that live there are really abstract artists and kind of wild and crazy people out there at the Salton Sea, and a lot of those people that make crazy stuff for Burning Man, and so a lot of the artifacts in the background of the video and stuff are artifacts and leftover stuff from Burning Man. But we went in cheap and did it in a day, and that's how we wanted to do it. Cheap and easy, because videos. I mean, whatever. We're not going to get any MTV or VH1 airplay, because they don't even do videos anymore, really. But we got a lot of hits on YouTube for it. But back in the day, Steve, I got to tell you, we would spend $100,000 on a video, and it would take us 2 16-hour days to do a 4-minute video, which is crazy. And no way are we going to do that these days. And you can film videos with your iPhone these days.
How does that make you feel? Like, when you watch MTV now, and you guys, MTV helped break, Night Ranger, because MTV helped break everyone. I mean, Sister Christian, everyone knows that video. You Can Still Rock in America, although we know those videos. But what is it like now when you put on MTV and you go, holy crap, I'm watching the Jersey Shore when it used to be like us?
Yeah. Hey, man, I have nothing to do with that, but I got to tell you, we were so lucky back in the day, because when we came out, MTV just came out with their 4/7 format, all day, all night, every day, MTV videos, and they didn't have enough content of videos to exploit all these new artists. And everybody started doing videos because they knew it was a great way to put a face to the music. But they literally played our first video, Don't Tell Me You Love Me, 25 or 30 times a day, because they didn't have enough content. So no problem here, because it put a face to the music. Everywhere we went, people recognized us, and we ended up doing probably a dozen videos throughout the 80s, and all of them got major airplay, and it really helped promote the band.
What is that like? What was that like? You guys are a band, and all of a sudden MTV, no one expected it. Then all of a sudden you're getting recognized everywhere you go. And you guys were a rock band, and I'm sure women were going crazy. What is that like for a young guy to sit there and go, wait a second, is this really happening?
It was a lot of fun, Steve. I don't remember much of the 80s. That means I had a good time. Yeah, no, we were young kids, man. We were doing 250 shows a year, all over the world. Japan, kicked butt in Japan, still do. Went over to Europe with Foreigner, did a bunch of shows back in the 80s. The States were great. You know, we opened up for so many great, huge bands back then with our records coming out. You know, first record, you know, Don't Tell Me Love Me, then Sing Me Away, then Still Rockin' America came out. Then we released this little ballad called Sister Christian. All of a sudden, boom, huge hit all over the place, all over radio, everywhere. And the video, stupid airplay, MTV all the time playing that. And it was time for us to go in and jump to headline status. So remember going in and we like designed this cool stage setup and got our trucks together and all of our gear and started going out on tour, man, and headlining. And late 83, 84-ish, right around then. And I'll never forget our first show pulling into La Crosse, Wisconsin. Our first show pulling in to the Coliseum there, and on the marquee, it's like, tonight, Night Range is sold out. And we were all like, you know, wow, this is it, man. You know, we've hit our, you know, hit a big stride here. You know, that's every rock band's dream, is to headline and have a hit song on the radio. And we were there, man. And that lasted all through the 80s. And out of 9 months of touring, we'd come home and we'd go right in and do a record. Probably had 2 weeks off a year for the first couple of records because we were so busy. And you got to get it while it's hot, you know.
Now, I read something that on the new album, you were lucky to record at home because you could use your great guitar collection. I want to hear about your guitar collection. How many guitars do you have?
Well, Steve, I can only play one at a time, so I got a lot of guitars, got a lot of amps. You can see, you know, I collect. If you look over here, you can see I got the old, you know, Gibson amps, and that one in the lower right-hand corner, that's a 59 Bassman. The other ones are like, you know, the black face and silver face Fender amps, which are the iconic sound for so many bands growing up and everything. But I used my made red Strat on a bunch of stuff. I used a 57 Strat on Can't Afford a Hero through a 65 Fender Deluxe Reverb to get that classic sound that you could hear on the ballad, Can't Afford a Hero. And then I used a 52 Les Paul Gold Top on a couple things for rhythms and stuff. Just, it's got that beef. But what I didn't use was my very first guitar.
That was the first one ever?
This is the first guitar my father bought me. My parents bought me on my 8th birthday. So check this out, man. Not many people know this story, but this is a K Vanguard 2, and I got it for my 8th birthday with the stipulation from my parents that I took lessons. So I took lessons. And then after a while, a friend of my brother's came over and said, Brad, man, you listen to the radio. You know the basic chords. Learn by ear. So I ended up learning by ear, which was awesome because I was got in club bands after that, and I was able to listen to songs on the radio and just pick things up by ear. When I joined Ozzy Osbourne, I had a live cassette with Randy Rhoads on it before his tragic, death, and I learned by ear his solos in 4 days and did my first show. But it really helped me out learning by ear. But what I was getting at, this K Vanguard 2, I sold it when I was 12. I got it when I was 8. I sold it when I was 12 at a penny market, and it was gone. I remember watching the guy walk away with it. I got $25 for it. I remember that. And because my dad was a pilot, he went over to Germany and brought me back a Hofner, an ES-335 Gibson copy. So I started playing that, so I sold this K. Anyway, being a guitar collector, I go to a lot of guitar shows, and there's me in the Bay Area. I went to this guitar show in Marin County called the what it is. Anyway, every year, 2 times a year, they have guitar shows. Everybody brings their guitars and stuff, and I had a booth, and I would buy and sell, trade, do fun stuff. Just my passion. And I was walking around to other people's booths, and I saw this guitar, and I went to the owner of Guitar Showcase, and I said, Gary, this looks like my original guitar. Where'd you get it? He goes, Brad, man, I probably got that 35, 40 years ago, and it's been up in the rafters at my store, untouched for, 40 years. And the only reason I brought them out, and I'm selling all these old, cheap, eclectic guitars because people were buying them, and they're vintage, and some of them have a cool sound, right? I said, Gary, I think this might be my original guitar. And I go, can I take it back to my booth and check it out? He says, sure. So I take it back, and I text my sister. I go, I might have found my original guitar. Can you find the picture of me playing it, I think when I'm 10 years old and I'm playing it, whatever, she sent it to me, and the wear on the knobs were exactly the same, right? And I started getting that, that feeling like you just won the lottery, oh my gosh, And then there was a ding. There's a ding on the bottom corner of it right here. This little ding right here. You can't see it anyway. But on the picture, when I magnified the picture and looked at it, I saw the ding down there. It matched up. And I realized this is my guitar. So I went back to Gary, and he sold it to me for half price. And this is like 5-6 years ago. So I got back my original guitar, my first guitar that I ever owned.
What made you want to pick up the guitar? What was it that...
The Beatles.
The Beatles?
The Rolling Stones. The Animals. My brother is 7 years older than me. He had a good friend who played in a band called the Bull Brummels. And he was a guitar player. And he'd come over and, and I'd go watch them at rehearsal. When I was a little kid, my brother, he's 7 years older than me, right? So he was into all this, cool stuff when he was 15, 16. And then the Beatles came out, and it's like, I want a guitar, I want a guitar. My mom and dad said, my mom played keyboard and sang around the house, so it was kind of a musical house. And then my brother had all the cool records. So, like this, they said, if you take lessons, we'll get you this guitar. So, my 8th birthday, I got the K guitar and a K amp. I don't know where the amp is. I wouldn't even know anything about that. I don't even have a picture of me with the amp. But the cool thing was, when I was growing up in the late 60s, I was like, 12, 13 years old. My brother would have all the greatest records, albums at that time. Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin, The Doors, Big Brother and the Holding Company, all the latest, coolest records back then in the whole hippie era, right? And he'd go out every night, and he was an electronic engineer, even in high school, and he built me this little preamp in a box. He took me out of the record player, went into the box. I plugged my guitar into the box, had a preamp in there, and a knob on it, and an output that went to headphones. So I was able to plug my guitar in, get a distortion sound, mix the record player with what I was listening to. My brother would go out every night, and I'd sit in his room, and I'd just try to figure out all this, these great songs. But I was dedicated, man. That's all I ever did, come home from school, play guitar until dinner, and play tomorrow until they had to go to bed, and get up the next morning and go to school, come back, do the same thing. On the weekends, I play, all the time. I had my first band when I was 10, and called the Invaders, and played rock bands all through high school. And the great thing was when I graduated high school, there was an opening for a guitar player in this band called Arm & Hammer. And they needed a guitar player, and I was only 18, fresh out of high school. But when they heard me play, they said, wow, we got to get you in the band, but you're too young. You got to be 21 or over to play in nightclubs. So I was able to play in nightclubs and learn all this stuff in 75, 76, everything from the disco crap, everything that came out, learning how to play, funky, clean tone ninth chords to, stuff that was popular, Bad Company and Skinner and everything else that came back then that we were playing live, and playing 5 nights a week really got me honed in for my future endeavors,
Now, you have a great memory about your career. Do you remember the first time you heard a Night Ranger song on the radio?
Yeah. I had the cassette in my Datsun pickup, and I had been playing it, the cassette pretty much, all the time, and then I get to listen to it because we just finished it and everybody got a cassette. And I got in my truck and I was going somewhere, and, I started driving, turned on the radio, and Don't Tell Me Love Me was on it. And I went, I looked down at the cassette and it wasn't pushed in. And I pull it out, and I'm going, wait a minute, we're on the radio, and it blew me away, dude. It blew me away.
Now, you're back on the road, and I know as performers, it must have been hard when you didn't know when you could go back on the road. What is it like? I mean, now that you perform, your guys are great in concert, but when you're away from it, when you come back, is it that much sweeter because it's like all of a sudden you can't have it, and now you can? What is that like?
Well, this band always, we always love to play live, and it never gets old. And people say, "Hey, man, is it getting old? You playing Sister Christian 3,000 times in your career. That's probably how many live shows we've done." And it's like, no, it doesn't, because every venue is different, every crowd is different. They're digging it, loving it, singing along, and it's exciting to play live. And you got Jack Blades up there, a little firecracker running around going crazy, and Kerry Kelly, our latest guitar player. Well, he's been with us 6-7 years now, but a lot of energy, and so it's still fun to play live. It's a crazy situation right now, and who knows, things may shut down, but every day, one day at a time, man.
Now, after this album, what do you foresee as Night Ranger's future? Do you plan to do another album down the road, or do you want to sit there and do some solo stuff?
No, we do. We do an album every a couple years, so it's going to be a couple years. But we got the Kiss Cruise coming up. We got Summerfest coming up. We got Japan coming up next year. We got opening for Guns N' Roses at the Sweden Rock Festival next summer. We got a lot of big, huge stuff coming up. We lost our Sammy Hagar Whitesnake Night Ranger tour last summer. We had 42 amphitheater shows booked last summer. That all got shut down because of COVID. But we have a lot going on. I just don't know what's the future is with COVID.
What is it, real quick? What is it like in Japan? Because I've heard the fans in Japan they go crazy. They love their music. What was it like for you guys through your whole career? Because you probably blew up big there younger, and they've loved you ever since.
Yeah, at our heyday, we did Budokan, kind of like, Cheap Trick. Like, we did 2 Budokans. We go back there now. We play this 4,000-seater in Tokyo. We do 3 nights. Then we go to Osaka, Nagoya, Fukuoka, wherever they want us, which is usually everywhere. We've always been popular there, sell a lot of records. The food's amazing. The shopping's amazing. The people are respectful. It was crazy the first time I went there and played. First time I went there was with my brother, my father, who's a pilot. Flew my brother and me to Tokyo, dropped us off, and went and flew around. My brother and I went to the Honda factory, went to Mount Fuji, rode the bullet train. Awesome. I was 13, 14 years old. But then I went back with Ozzy, played for the first time there, and everything sold out crazy. The food was amazing. Mr. Udo Artists, the company that booked us, that's bringing us over there for decades. Well, they've been gracious, put us up at great hotels, first class in the bullet train. Take us to we have a big dinner after we finish all of our shows, come back to Tokyo, go out to this amazing dinner with shabu and the Kobe beef. And, they give you these big, huge rocks. They put these rocks in an oven and they heat them up to where they're almost red, and they put them on your table, and you take this real thin beef and you lay them on the rocks and you cook it yourself and then dip it in these fabulous sauces. So can't wait to go back.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for coming on, Brad. People, go check out nightranger.com. Go see them in concert. They kick ass. Go listen to their albums. Go buy their albums. Buy their new album. Go. You can find their video online. So check out Night Ranger. I'm Steve Cooper. Go to my website, coopertalk.net. You can find over 865 episodes. Email me at cooper@coopertalk.net. I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guests. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you guys next time.